Representative from Kentucky, Mr. Barr, is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the very important hearing exposing the jaw-dropping waste at the USAID. And many USAID foreign assistance grants are not only wasteful, but counterproductive to our diplomatic and foreign policy objectives. Just a few examples: $75,000 for a drag show workshop in Ecuador, $37 million for services for sex workers and their clients and transgender people in South Africa, $31 million for providing USAID employees with resilience, wellness, and work-life balance counseling, $24 million to build green transportation alternatives in Georgia, $500,000 to help Indonesian coffee companies become more climate and gender-friendly, $15 million to promote LGBT rights for individuals in Kenya, and $2 million to conduct sex change surgeries in Guatemala through a trans-led organization. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle are whining that President Trump has fired the Inspector General of this agency. Thank goodness for President Trump for firing an Inspector General for not exposing what Elon Musk has exposed with this waste. Are these programs what hardworking American taxpayers should be funding? But let me focus on Uganda because my colleague from Texas raised that issue, a country that has thousands of soldiers fighting for our counterterrorism interests against al-Shabaab in Somalia. And that country was severely punished by the Biden administration for signing its anti-homosexuality law into law in May of 2023. The Biden administration revoked Uganda's AGOA eligibility, enacted visa restrictions on Ugandan individuals, and pressured the World Bank to prohibit new public financing. Despite this, USAID has provided a $600,000 grant to, quote, empower Uganda's LGBT community to push back against this legislation, and a $5.4 million grant to shift public perception and attitudes in Uganda towards LGBT acceptance and to train LGBT individuals on the skills needed to engage in the economy. Now, in Uganda, China is expected to finance the $5 billion East African crude oil pipeline directly because Western leaders and the World Bank are walking away from the project because the Biden administration's response to their own domestic legislation. Mr. Primorak, should taxpayer dollars go toward penalizing countries like Uganda for making their own internal domestic political decisions on social issues that one administration doesn't agree with, which in turn strengthens countries' relationships with our adversaries like the communists in China?
Congressman, I've spoken to many officials from the region there, and they explained to me their shock when they would prepare for meetings with Secretary Blinken. They prepared about how can we work together to combat China, actually. But when they had the meeting, they were hit with the woke things about the climate, about the LGBT, and all these issues. They were utterly stunned that here they are, Africa. They know about the challenge and the great geostrategic fight that we have, ready to work with us, but we weren't ready to work with them.
Well, look, I get it. The gentleman from Texas disagrees with the Ugandan people. I get it. The Biden administration disagreed with the Ugandan people, and Secretary Blinken and USAID in the previous administration disagreed with the Ugandan people on this issue of homosexuality legislation. I get it. The question is not their opinion. The question is, what is the diplomatic job of the State Department and USAID? Is it to lecture the Ugandans, or is it to help us counter Belt and Road? Is the job of the State Department and USAID to advance American national security? That's the question. And what they did in that instance with Uganda is compromise American national security and empower our adversary. Representative Yoho, Ted, it's good to see you. Thank you for your amazing work and your authorship of the BUILD Act. You were instrumental in the passage of that bill and authorized U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. Can you see DFC playing a much more effective role in advancing our interests abroad and countering China's Belt and Road?
Absolutely.
And if you could, how can reforms like equity scoring and country eligibility changes help U.S. investments in countries like Panama?
It's a big reform. I mean, that's the best tool we have to counter the BRI, the Belt Road Initiative, and the equity scoring is a must fix. It's something that has to be, because right now it limits what the DFC can do, and then raising the country of eligibility allows us to go into these countries strategically where we can counter the BRI where we can't go now. And this is something that we're going to talk about next month in the reauthorization. And I hope it's a bipartisan effort, and there's a lot of support. But if we don't do it, we're going to see that much more influence, and it goes to people that aren't friendly to the United States.
Well, thanks for your leadership on that. And I agree with you. Move from aid to trade.
To trade.
And thank you to President Trump for his leadership on rooting out all of this waste and frankly, activity that undermines our national security.
Gentlemen's time has expired.